So it was. Okay. Well, now we can get started. I'm Joshua Breitbart, Senior Vice President for Connect All. Becky, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Becky Kepnick. Nice to see you all. I am the Senior Vice President for the Office of Housing Preservation here at HCR.
Thank you. I'll ask people to mute. First, just I want to say thank you thank you to our partners at Homes and Community Renewal. Thank you to the team at Connect All and our consultants at HRNA Advisors for helping stand up this program and convening this forum today. And thank you to you all. One bit of context before we start, which is that this program is not really designed to benefit property owners. So we really appreciate that you are joining us today and your participation in this program to help expand affordable broadband to low-income residents throughout the state. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to share some information about the Affordable Housing Connectivity Program with you today. Richie, can you go to the next slide? So our agenda today is just an overview of the program. Give you some context on the eligibility for properties and explain how to participate and what to expect when you do participate. We'll have some time for Q&A. We'll do our best to answer questions that you may ask here, although there may be some things that we take back to make sure that we get you the right answer and post that information to our website. And then we'll close out with the next steps in the timeline. First, I also just want to provide an overview of Connect All. Next slide. So Connect All is Governor Hochul's initiative to expand affordable, reliable, high-speed broadband service to all New Yorkers. We are stewards of over $1 billion in public investment, and there are 5 signature grant programs that money is being invested through. The Municipal Infrastructure Program, the Connect All Deployment Program, which focuses on unserved and underserved locations throughout the state, Connectivity Innovation, which is fostering new business models to address unserved or underserved communities, Statewide Digital Equity Plan and Grant Program, which addresses non-infrastructure barriers to broadband adoption, and the Affordable Housing Connectivity Program, which is our focus today. Next slide. We've been doing, as part of standing up these programs, we've been doing stakeholder forums to engage with a range of partners. The wonderful thing about working in broadband is you have an opportunity to work with such a wide range of partners across the state. Today's topic is the Affordable Housing Connectivity Program and focused on our partnership with property owners. And again, just a great privilege to have this opportunity to work directly with you through this program. Next slide. So now we're going to provide an overview of the program, and I will hand it to my HCR colleague to provide some context for this work. Next slide, Richie.
Great. Thanks, Josh. So I'm just going to walk you through sort of the state of broadband and affordable housing and some context for the importance of this program. So, and many of you know this as owners and managers of affordable housing in the cities and suburban areas across the state. But, you know, about a third of New York households that are low income, who have annual incomes below $35,000 a year, actually do not have a home broadband subscription. So that's a huge percentage of the population, especially given how important broadband is to our everyday lives now. If you think about, you know, what we all went through with COVID in terms of remote school, but also just in terms of day-to-day lives and in terms of your ability to get in touch with people as property owners and managers, broadband is, you know, critically important. We have almost 1 million New York households that don't subscribe to a broadband service, and you know, about 2.5% of the state is unserved, meaning it's not wired for broadband. And then this one really surprised me. There are about 100,000 addresses in the state that just have no broadband infrastructure, period. So this program is really going to give the affordable housing world access to broadband, which is really a resource everyone needs in the current economy to be able to get ahead. Next slide. So as Josh alluded to, this program is the largest in the country. It really represents a huge commitment on behalf of the governor to affordable housing and to low-income tenants. So we have $100 million in funds for putting broadband in housing. Again, the goal being to increase access in low-income communities and help folks connect with jobs, with education, with healthcare services, and with their communities and with each other. As Josh said, HCR has been working very closely with the Connect All office on this initiative. And the structure here is to have the Connect All office is granting funds directly to the internet service providers, or ISPs, to provide the high-speed broadband infrastructure, which I think is a great way of doing this, from a houser's perspective, for a number of reasons. One, y'all don't have to fill out any more applications to apply for funding. You've already done that. But two, most importantly, for those of you who have tax credit properties, you don't have to deal with receiving a grant that might interfere with your eligible basis. This all goes through the ISP, so makes this a little more seamless from the owner's point of view. And Josh is going to go into a little more detail about how this is all going to work.
And I just want to, again, add my appreciation for the work that HCR has done to incorporate standards and work with property owners on new construction. And with HCR, we identified this opportunity to use support from the Treasury Department's Capital Projects Fund at the direction of the governor to address existing properties. Next slide, and I'll speak to how the program works. The grantees, the eligible grantees, are owners of broadband infrastructure, builders of broadband infrastructure, internet service providers, which is a common term for the company that delivers internet service to a building or a home, and managed service providers, which are another market segment, which their role is to manage networks within a building. So they will bring an internet connection to a building, and then they'll manage that connection and the service to all the homes. So those are who the eligible grantees are. And they will be able to apply to use grant funds to connect the property with fiber or another broadband connection type, and then to distribute that connection throughout the building with new wiring and equipment. One thing to keep in mind is, this is not to pay for existing service. So it's really to upgrade existing infrastructure and expand the number of providers in a building, prioritizing, making sure there's at least one, but expanding those options to make sure that these homes have the highest level of infrastructure and service available in a community. Next slide. So the timeline, the high-level timeline that you can see here is through 2023. We secured the funding, the federal funding, and have been reaching out to many of you to identify properties to participate. That work will continue as we proceed to continue to identify properties that still open to take part in the program. We will move with the application that's now open to matching those properties with the grantees, and we'll explain a bit more about that process later on. Once those plans are finalized, then we would award the grants, and infrastructure would be deployed and that has to be substantially complete by the end of 2026. So with this timeline, with the construction beginning this year, we'd expect service to begin in 2025 and roll out over the course of the remainder of the grant program until that's complete. Next slide. So I'll speak to property eligibility. The general focus here is that these are affordable rental housing units. They can be publicly or privately owned, and they are regulated by a government agency to ensure that those tenants are income qualified, essentially. So these would be rental rather than home ownership, and the regulated housing program is tied to the property. And that the units are restricted for tenancy based upon household income. Again, we work very closely with HCR, and Becky can go a little bit more into some of the specific examples of those programs. Next slide.
Thanks, Josh. So as Josh alluded to, there's a wide variety of properties that are eligible for this program. It's not just properties that have received support or have a regulatory agreement with HCR, although you all are certainly eligible. But if you have received assistance, if you are New York City based through the Department of Housing Preservation Development, a 420C, or you have other support through them. If you are a public housing property, anywhere in the state, federal public housing or state supervised public housing, or any of the many other HUD programs, so 202s, 811s, 236s if you still got one, 202s, and 811s if you have a PRAC from HUD. And then the project-based Section 8, if you have a multifamily project-based Section 8 contract through FHA, those are eligible as well. So it really, and Mitchell-Lamas, how could I forget the Mitchell-Lamas? But it's really a very broad group of properties that are either under a regulatory agreement with the city or state or have a contract with HUD. If there is a program that we have forgotten about, some sort of legacy program that we have forgotten about, you can feel free to flip that to us and we'll take a look at it. But this is meant to be inclusive of the state, local, and federal programs.
Thank you, Becky. Next slide. So I'll explain a little bit more about how to participate and also say thank you to those of you who have already opted into the program by responding to our initial phase. I think we got bumped back to the first slide here. Thank you. Okay, Richie, next slide. So again, thank you to those who completed the initial survey. We're now proceeding to a more detailed assessment. And the key to this is, the first baseline is it's a way to indicate interest. That's really the key for this. This is not a requirement. Again, this is asking you to join us in this mission of making broadband more available and affordable throughout the state. This is your property, and we're trying to find the best partnership here. So this is a means for you to indicate the interest. We also are asking for building specific details in the survey. And what this allows us to do is streamline the process of identifying the internet service provider so that they can develop an approach to the building, not the final approach, but enough that we can evaluate the proposal based on the information that you're able to provide through this online survey, this building conditions self-assessment survey. This assessment survey shares what you know about your building and as much details as you can provide about the conditions that are relevant to broadband deployment. If you have any questions or challenges with the program and survey, we have a partnership with Civics, You can see on this, and we'll provide it to you, the outreach email you can contact or the phone number you can call to get assistance from them in completing the survey, answering questions, or any other things to facilitate your participation in the program. So now really is the key time to click on this link, either right now in this moment and hold it open, or right after this, we'll send it around. Next slide. And I'll give you a little bit more context for this survey. So again, that link, or you can find it on our webpage. So if you go to the program, if you go to the section for property owners, you'll see that it asks you to click on the building condition self-assessment, and it will take you to that link. Next slide. You can, if you want to prepare before you go through the survey, which has some required questions, you can use this link on the page to download a PDF of all the questions, so that you can be prepared before you begin answering. We asked you to complete a survey for each property because we need some of those details for each property. But for a property with multiple buildings, you'll be able to do that through one survey response. And thank you to those who have completed it and noted that it would be helpful to have a follow-up confirmation. So we'll look into that workflow. Your feedback along the way has been essential. Next slide. So before you begin, or as you're reviewing that PDF, it's helpful to consult the property or asset managers or contractors. The questions may draw on specific knowledge from different people on your team. And it might look for plans that you have underway, existing electrical services or pathways that might be already installed in terms of conduit, or building space, as long as general factual information about the number of buildings, the number of floors, number of units, number of affordable units within that, total square footage, the age of the building, which gives us an indication of the construction material, and information about rooftop access. Next slide. So one of the things, we have a property database which you can search, which will help with you completing the information and us, and allows us to track that information and make sure we have information that matches, or ask you to correct the information in our database if it's not correct. So the first thing we ask you to do is look through this database and identify see if the property is in there, and then you can use that to populate a number of the fields in the survey. And if it's not in that does not mean that you are not eligible, and we would greatly appreciate continue to complete the survey, and we'll then add it into to our database. So that's one of the first steps that you can do to preparing to respond to this assessment survey. Next slide. As you can see, to find it, you can look by property name or other available fields, and you'll be able to find then the property ID number, which is just related to this list. And again, it allows us to do some record matching, which should streamline your completion of it, as well as our tracking of progress of participation in the program. Next slide. And I don't know if we put it in the chat already, but again, we'll follow up and make sure that you have access to that link. One of the things that you'll see is that there are some required questions, although it's not meant to be prohibitive or a barrier. As you can see, if you don't know the answer to the required question, you have that option of saying, I'm not sure in this case. In some other cases, there are questions that will only appear based on the way that you answer some other questions. So that logic question, or that a logic process in the survey, will unlock certain questions if they're relevant and keep them hidden if they're not relevant to your previous responses. Next slide. Importantly, and in order to either gather more information or seek help, or just make progress and come back to it, you can save your progress and return to the survey at any time. Just in the upper right corner of the survey, you click on Save and Continue Later, enter your email address, and so the most recent email address from this process will be the link to return to the survey in progress. Then you can also use that same process to update a submitted survey if you have to do that. And again, if you have any questions, we have our partnership with Civics to support you in this process. And again, you can save, continue later, follow up for help, or come back to it once you have the full information. So again, easy to start, easy to progress through, and easy to return to and get to the end of. It does ask for a lot of information, but that's critical to that really will save us time in the long run. Next slide. So again, if any questions, this is the information again, and we will be sending it out about the survey. So our partners at Civics are ready to take your calls and help you through the process. And they may be calling you to ask you to go ahead and fill it out or see if you're having any problems, to again encourage you to participate. Next slide. So a little bit more about after you are participating, what you might find. So we are already receiving applications from internet service providers, and we're going through a two-step process with them. In the first step, they're giving us a general description of their approach, of course, their qualifications as an internet service provider, and we are reviewing that. Based on that successful completion and complete Section 1 application, we will be asking them to submit property-specific deployment plans for specific sets of properties. You will not have anybody approved to deploy on your property without your approval. And again, we will continue to work with you as a partner through this process. If you are already working with an internet service provider, you can indicate that in the survey, but the ISP still has to apply, and it is not binding from our perspective. It is not binding on you if you give that indication. It is not binding on the internet service provider to be obliged to accept that. And it is not binding on ConnectAll to make an award for that ISP to your property. In fact, we may review multiple proposals and select the best one for you to consider. But again, ultimately, you will be able to you will have to approve from any internet service provider or grant recipient to install anything at your property. Next slide. So what we will be doing is taking the properties in a metro area, and these are generally where there is the most where housing tends to be concentrated in these metro areas indicated on the map here. But that does not mean if you are a property that's not in any of these areas, that does not mean you cannot participate. But what we're doing is we're matching where the properties are to where the service providers are. So an internet service provider may not be operating everywhere in the state. So they will be asked to indicate which of these markets they can operate in and the capacity that they have to serve those properties, or the number of properties that they'd be able to complete in the time of the grant program. And based on that, we will assemble portfolios and requests from those internet service providers that have completed successfully completed the Section 1 application and who've indicated that they can serve in those markets. And we'll be getting plans and proposals from them, and we will review those to identify the best one before they proceed to engage with you to determine some additional specifics to deployment plans. So again, you will apply. We will create these portfolios among the participating properties to get the project specific and building specific deployment plans for those portfolios of properties within these markets. Next slide. We certainly hope that we'll be able to receive successful proposals for all the buildings that are participating in the program, and we will keep going until all the program funds have been expended, as long as they are available. If we have to prioritize properties for participation, we will consider a number of factors, such as that there has been a full self-assessment completed and the amount of information we have, which again will streamline the process and attract the best proposals from our perspective. We are also looking at the conditions in the building based on what you say, but also we have data from the Federal Communications Commission that can tell us if there is no service available, or if it's not sufficiently, the speeds are not sufficient to be considered broadband, or if other considerations, such as whether there's a fiber connection to and within the building, or if there is limited choice. We also may consider the length of time that units will remain affordable under the regulation, meaning how certain and for how long we can expect low-income households to be the beneficiary by supporting new deployment to those units. And then also, again, considering some other factors about the regulations of the households. Next slide. So the grantee will have a number of responsibilities, which are just generally described here. These will be detailed in a grant agreement with Connect All. So they will designate a primary point of contact, which will streamline communication with us and with you. They will be designing those property-specific broadband deployment plans. They will ultimately have to enter into an agreement, a building access agreement with the property owner. They will coordinate all the activities that happen at the site with the owner. They will limit disruption to residents. They will have an approach, again, that minimizes disruption to the building, to the tenants, and they will explain how they're going to communicate that process. They will respect the property and address any anything that any impacts from the installation. And then they will operate, monitor, maintain all the infrastructure and equipment and provide ongoing customer support. They'll work with us to make sure that all of the work is completed and verified. And they will coordinate on-site inspection per the grant agreement. And then they will market the service to tenants, and we expect them to be partnered with organizations that can support adoption and literacy, so that the tenants are able to take full advantage of the new service that's there. And of course, we see that as in their interest as well. And this is really what we're looking for. We're looking for internet service providers that want to be this kind of partner to these tenants, to these communities, and to you. Next slide. Property owners' responsibilities are more streamlined. Certainly also designating a primary point of contact for Connect All and the assigned grantee. And this is really so key, because this is such a huge value to these internet service providers, that we are doing the work to partner with you on the front end to identify the point of contact, confirm your willingness to be in this program. And this is a huge value to these companies. Many of these companies, are interested in doing this, but it's difficult for them to do this work of identifying all these points of contact and doing it at scale to be in one of these metro areas. So your participation is such a huge value add to this program. Ultimately, to proceed, you would enter into an agreement with the assigned grantee, and we will be providing support for that process. And then, of course, as per that agreement, providing interior and exterior building access to the grantee as necessary, and that may involve an initial site survey, and then ongoing access for installation, maintenance, and turn up and operations. Next slide. So we'll take some time for Q&A. I know that some things have been coming in through the chat, and I know the team has been answering those where we have answers. There may be some questions that we have to take back for consideration, and then we'll post it up on our website in the appropriate section, and make sure that we'll be doing that regularly, and we'll share that information as it is updated. So let's go to the next slide. We will share this presentation as well as the video. That will be shared soon. Let's see. I have not been following along in the chat on all the questions. Also, anything that you want to share, and again, we'll do our best to answer them here, but may have to follow up with somebody to just make sure we get the right answer and that we make it available to everybody. We really want everybody to have the same information.
I think we're nearly up to speed answering all of the questions in the chat. I see a few that have just come in, and we'll continue to answer those. There have been some questions about affordability and the price, and I would direct everyone within the chat to the response that Connect All is working to ensure and address affordability of the service in multiple ways. One is requiring grantees to participate in the Affordable Connectivity Program or a subsequent subsidy program to offset the cost of the monthly service, to encourage that broadband deployments include open access networks that allow for competition and lower cost consumer options, and also that Connect All will be encouraging grantees to offer affordable internet packages without bundling other services, like a package that has phone, cable, and internet combined, even before the application of a discount.
So it's we have some, and you're welcome to look through the request for applications themselves. We ask for services at certain levels, and that's one of the key considerations of what of the evaluation of the approach that the potential grantee is taking. And again, the eligible for-profit or not-for-profit are eligible to apply if it's to be the internet service provider, built infrastructure builder or owner, or managed service provider. And there is a presentation up on our website that we gave to potential grantees, and either we can put that link in the chat, or you can find it on our website. And we will, so the timeline we can actually just go to the next, is the next slide the timeline slide? And to answer your question, Frank, so public housing authorities are eligible, and there isn't a minimum size, and again, it's really just, we asked you to fill out the assessment survey. This is one of the advantages of the program, is that we are bringing the scale by putting these portfolios together. So it means that smaller. Oh, I see what you mean. You're asking about the minimum size of the property itself. Again, we asked for that information, and that's not excluded from completing the survey. So in terms of timeline, we are currently receiving applications from potential grantees for those Section 1 applications. We've advised them, we'll be accepting those on a rolling basis. We've advised applicants to complete their application by February 16th in order to allow us the time to review all those applications before we begin the first property portfolios, and we will make those property portfolios known to the successful Section 1 applications for those markets that those portfolios are in, and we are working on a process by which we would also keep all those property owners updated on that the property is part of a portfolio, and the timeline. So each portfolio will also have its own deadline for responses, and those will go out on a periodic basis based on the level of participation from the potential grantees, the service providers, as well as the volume of responses to the assessment survey. But we will continue that process as quickly as we can in order to fully expend the funding. But again, each portfolio will have a response deadline for that set of eligible Section 1 applicants that can respond to that Section 2. And then we will review those responses, and based on the preliminary selection, advance a potential grantee to refining the approach, securing the agreements, and proceeding to a finalized award in coordination with the Treasury Capital's Projects Fund program. Didn't see if there are other questions are coming in. Somebody had a hand raised.
Okay. Oh, hi. How are you?
Is that Louis? Louis, you have your hand raised?
I do. I was actually chatting, typing the question in the chat.
Okay.
One of the questions I have is one of the problems we have here is that we have areas that the ISPs are reluctant to go into because the economic profile of the customer base will not necessarily have a high ROI for the ISPs. So they tend not to like to wire low-income housing or housing authority properties. Is there any way that we can address that if we have a building that would actually qualify, but not necessarily ISPs that are eager to go into those? This was a question that was actually asked in a slightly different way to Commissioner Knight at the budget hearing today that she just finished testifying 10 minutes ago by one of the members of the legislature.
Okay. Well, I will certainly, be interested to see the details of that hearing. But I would say, in essence, that is the heart of this program. The phenomenon you described is sometimes called digital redlining. And the heart of this program is to provide the capital costs and the scale to then identify the ISPs that do want to be a partner to those tenants, those property owners, and Connect All and Homes and Community Renewal to bringing service to those areas that one by one maybe haven't attracted private investment or as much private investment as other parts of metro areas have in the past. So this program is really designed to address that phenomenon. And we can do that also through the portfolios, bundling properties together. And when we put a portfolio together, we will, the response will have to address all the properties in the portfolio. So by making $100 million of funding available for the construction installation costs, by working at scale, and by using our collaborative effort and the strength of Connect All to identify internet service providers to participate in this program, that's exactly the challenge that we think we can address with the Affordable Housing Connectivity Program. Louis, does that answer your question?
It does. And just to ask the follow-up, is there a plan for what happens when the funds expire with the ACP? When we have so many of our constituents that are dependent upon that $30 subsidy, and when it goes away?
It's a tough question. The scale of participation in the Affordable Connectivity Program is difficult to replace. Given that about 1.7 million households in New York alone are participating, that means it's bringing in over $50 million every month to making broadband service affordable. But this program certainly would benefit from having that federal subsidy program, but it will also ask providers to commit to a low cost service option for an enduring stretch of time. So this will give us some ability to make service more affordable for the properties that participate. But I can't tell you that we can fully replace the impact that the Affordable Connectivity Program has had, and I certainly we all certainly continue to hope that Congress will act to extend the program. But again, it's something that the federal resources have been critical to. But I think that this program will show that we may be able to find the right good partners with the right partnership to keep broadband costs low for these homes. We're getting close to time. I'm sure there may be some other questions again that we're gonna look through and develop answers for and get the information together. We'll share the slides and recording of this session, and we'll be continuing to put out the survey. I would ask that you take the last few minutes of the hour to open the survey, to download the PDF with all the questions, begin looking through it, and again following up with civics if you have questions about how to complete it. And again, just want to thank you all for so many of you are mission driven to provide the best homes possible for New York residents, and we really appreciate the opportunity to partner with you in this era where broadband service is such a critical part to having healthy, thriving homes, households, communities, and we really appreciate the opportunity to work with you to make this a reality. And what we are seeing is that we really believe we can find the right internet service provider partners to work with you to be a part of this mission, and we're really so pleased by the internet service providers in the state and their interest in participating in this, and we look forward to developing those partnerships over the coming months and years of this program. Also, lastly, again, thank you to Homestead Community Renewal for your continued partnership, as well as just your leadership of, housing for the state and support for all these property owners, and to the Connect All team and our consultants for the working on the presentation and the program. Again, we'll close now, but we'll leave the chat open for a little bit. If anybody has some last questions they want to put in that way, that we'll follow up with through the Q&A posted to the property owner section of the program website. Thank you again.